You've got questions, we've got answers.
And I think that makes your pathway to university a lot easier.
The brain,
A voice.
Especially the first year if you pick the right subjects in year 11 and 12.
Information.
here, and those signals run down through the spine.
Here
They
in
then
our
exit
studio,
from these
we'll be
spinal
bringing you
nerves,
the
which
answer
you
to
can
these
see through
questions
here.
and more. Join us for InfoMate. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of InfoMate. Now, many people think of Australia as a remote backwater country miles away from anywhere else. And now, while that may be the case for countries like the UK and the US, where Australia is half a world away, everyone seems to forget that Australia is surrounded by thousands of islands. These are so rich and diverse in their culture. Now, the Solomon Islands is only 3.5 hours away from Sydney, and they're our closest political and economic ally. Now, we are also joined by two guests who have had the privilege to go there recently. Thank you for joining us, Imam Wadud Junud Sahab, assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Islam.
And Dr. Atar Rahman Sahab, assalamu alaikum. Now, Imam Sahab, this recent trip wasn't your first trip to the Solomon Islands. You also went last year?
So, yeah, absolutely. My first trip was in 2016 when His Holiness Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Al Khamis Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Al Aziz, he appointed me as a missionary to Solomon Islands as well as a missionary to Melbourne, Victoria.
Excellent. Now, this recent trip that you went on this year, 2017, this was a bit unique in its circumstances.
Absolutely. It was unique in the sense that we had members from the Ahmadiyyat Muslim Medical Association go to any country outside of Australia for the first time since their inception within Australia.
Wow. Now, Dr. Saab, that brings us to you where, you were the person going with the Ahmadiyyat Muslim Medical Association assigned to go to the Solomon Islands. Can you tell us a bit about your visit?
Actually, it's same as Ravi Sahab said, Hazur also gave us instructions that we should go and help poor communities around Australia. And I think as per Hazur's advice, we're looking for some places where we can go and help the poor communities. As we have community in Solomon Island, we have Jamaat established there for a few years. We make a plan to go there. It's a lot of effort to go to Solomon Island for the first time. But alhamdulillah, with Hazur's prayers and all the members' efforts, we're able to organize this visit.
Excellent. So you would call that the purpose of your visit, to go there and establish medical contacts?
Actually, the purpose of the visit is to make sure we introduce ourselves as a very organized association. And second is, as per Hazur's advice, to help to find the ways to help the poor communities in Solomon Island, which is a very poor country and very poor medical conditions there.
Oh, excellent. And now, what were some of the conditions that you were faced with there, the medical conditions?
Actually, there are plenty of medical conditions there. There are few problems from their hygiene, and there are few conditions because of their habits of not aware about medical conditions, medical things, like there's blood pressure, hypertension, we call them in our language, diabetes because of some of the food they use, cassava and things like that they use very often. They don't have a thongs, they walk barefoot, and they have a lot of foot ulcers. Then they used to eat this betel nuts, very popular in Solomon Islands, and because of that they got this different types of mouth issues. They have mouth ulcers, they had mouth cancers and things like that. So this is a lot of challenge for us. Also, the biggest issue for them at this stage is uncontrolled diabetes and blood pressure.
Okay. So you can say
and their wards are full of them.
Yeah, so it's become a big problem there for the wider community. Now,
Yes.
Imam Saab, in our Jamaat there in Solomon Islands, are you finding these medical problems transferring to the membership of our Jamaat there as well?
So generally, most of our Jamaat members, they are free from such medical conditions which you get from betel nut chewing and stuff like that. But because it's such a vast country, for example, in the map it may not seem like much, but Solomon Islands is a composition of nearly 1,000 islands.
Wow.
So our Jamaat is also spread out. However, mostly our Jamaat members, they're free from such ailments. However, as Dr. Saab mentioned, stomach ulcers, malaria, for example, that's rampant, typhoid, and these things, we see that even our Jamaat members are affected by them.
Okay. And we were discussing a bit earlier, but you mentioned that there was a specific incident there as well with a health-related problem for one of our members of our Jamaat.
So this is my second trip, and I saw that how much those members, they appreciated these doctors taking their time out from their work, from their commitments, from their families, and going to Solomon Islands. And they appreciated it as well, because a lot of the times these people, they've never been to the doctor. The main hospital in Honiara, that's the only main hospital in the whole country.
Wow.
So anyone who's injured, anyone who's sick, they would need to go to Honiara. One such incident was that one of our members, his wife, she had some stomach problems. She had some issues. Something very basic in this part of the world, which can be, which if you go visit your GP, they can easily prescribe you some medicine and that's it. But because they don't have those facilities, they approached our doctors, and within a matter of a few minutes, they were able to prescribe a medicine.
Wow.
And within one day, she was better. And she said, in the last 1 year or so, this is the first time that she's been able to sleep properly.
Alhamdulillah, that's excellent news. So it's just the fact that we've gone there with people knowledgeable, taking your medical expertise from countries like Australia and applying it to the places like the Solomon Islands. Now, Dr. Saab, in countries like Australia, I've read these figures that we've got up to 39 doctors per every 10,000 people. But in the countries like the Solomon Islands, there's only 2 doctors for every 10,000 people. So what are some of the contrasts that you're finding between the medical conditions that you find in the Solomon Islands compared to, say, Australia?
I guess the issue is first, the number of doctors and patient ratio, which you mentioned, and second thing is people don't have power to buy medicine. The medicine is not free there. So even like buying a simple Panadol or paracetamol tablet is a big issue, which is like $2. You can get 100 tablets here. They don't have this capacity to buy a simple tablets as well. So say we talk about blood pressure and diabetes and other medical conditions, that's more different because the medication costs more.
Yep.
So they don't have this power or to buy these medications, and that's why I think they have this blood pressure, uncontrolled diabetes, and complication because of blood pressure and diabetes are so much there. So you can find a young patients with complications of diabetes.
Yep.
Like they have ulcers, they can't feel their legs because of numbness and things like that. We have seen these patients. I have seen like 4 patients who are very young, 30 years old, and when I asked them what they have, they said they have diabetes when they born. And what about medication you are taking? No, they don't know about medications. So they don't have a simple basic medical knowledge. So giving them health knowledge and providing them basic medication is a big service to them.
It is.
And that gives you a lot of actually satisfaction as well, that you're helping them, such a poor people, and get some get the prayers from them.
Get the access to
Yeah,
the medicines
that's right.
that they need, that we all take for granted
That's
in countries
right.
like this.
So here, like if you want to buy, if you're sick and you need a medication which is $1,000, $10,000, you can get from the hospital.
Wow.
They can't even imagine that.
Yep. Now, Imam Saab, you mentioned that you also established some contacts on this trip here with the Ministry of Health in Solomon Islands.
So one of the purposes of this tour with the members of Medical Association was that we further established contacts there with the Ministry of Health, with the hospital over there, with WHO, World Health Organization. And we were able to do so just in a matter of about 2 weeks. We were able to not only establish contacts but links through which, inshallah, in the future we will be looking at fulfilling the future endeavors of MTA Muslim Medical Association in Australia.
Excellent. Now, establishing those contacts, did you find much resistance or difficulty introducing yourself? I'm from the Ahmadiyyat Muslim community from Australia, I'm here to help. Did you find they were open
I would say
people?
that the only difficulty would be that it's a third world country, and with that there's a lack of professionalism. The kind of professionalism that we're used to in this part of the world, it lacks in those countries. But with that being said, they were very appreciative of our efforts. They were receptive to it, and with them we've been actually able to sign a historic MOU.
So this MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, Dr. Saab, can you outline what this is for our viewers, and what were the main points that were outlined in the memorandum?
Actually, that's a memorandum of understanding is a big achievement for us, because that helped us to work in the Solomon Islands.
Yep.
If you don't have that memorandum, then actually it's very hard to work in Solomon Island. You have to get registration to work there. And the main points of this memorandum is that we as a medical association are there to help them with no political objection behind it.
Yep.
And we help them in every field of medicine and surgery or anything we can do, and we try to build a hospital in the future and also some dispensaries in the future to help poor people in Ireland free of cost.
Excellent.
With no political objectives at all.
So to achieve some of these objectives, like building free medical care, access to medications, access to basic medical equipment.
Yes.
So do you have any plans? I understand it's very early, but what are your plans to build this into the future?
Actually, we're already in contact with, as said, Mobisa mentioned that there's only one big hospital in Honiara, which is the capital of Solomon Island. So I have a regular connection with him, by emails. And he actually mentioned a lot of things which, like, they can't provide basic medical equipment they don't have, like like blood pressure operators, glucometers for glucose check, for thermometers, or oxygen meter and things like that. So he actually asked me for help. So we as a medical organization trying to collect all these whatever we can, and we have planned to go in November to deliver these things to them.
Excellent. So
And also they also ask us to help them in updating their medical knowledge. So we are planning that doctors from here, they go there and update them about the recent medical advances and up-to-date knowledge of medical stuff.
Excellent. So as part of your plans to update their knowledge of medicine, you mentioned that you were thinking about doing a few lectures for them as well?
Yeah, I'm going in November with my colleagues to deliver some lectures in November, yes.
Yeah, so that's the contribution of the
That's
Ahmadiyya
right.
Muslim Medical Association
That's right.
that you can see for the near future.
That's right.
Now, Imam Sahib, what are your sort of plans there for the Jamaat there as it's growing in the future as well?
I think through, you see the foresight of His Holiness, that how he has appointed such, countries, small islands which are close to Australia, under various missionaries. And through those missionaries, a lot of work is being done. A lot of connections are being established. A lot of members who had been cut off from Islam Ahmadiyyat for a long time, they're coming back to the Jamaat. And with this, with the coming of MTA Muslim Medical Association, we're able to serve the people of Solomon, not only spiritually, but also, through means of medical, help. And through that, they're attracted towards Jamaat. They're attracted towards these Muslims who, without taking anything from them, all volunteer work, they're serving the people of Solomon. So that naturally, brings them closer to the mosque. That naturally brings them closer to other Muslims who were there. So that's a huge achievement in itself.
Excellent. And now, as part of this trip that you went, what were some of the details and the progress that you made as you were going forward into achieving most of these steps?
I think, one of the biggest achievements would be the MOU. And through that, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, and this is something that I've seen in Africa, I've served in Africa, that through these hospitals and medical clinics, through these pharmacies, we're able to establish ourselves in those countries. So through the work of, not only Dr. Tasta, but all of the members and the teams behind him, inshallah in the future, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the track, with the prayers of His Holiness, and we're looking at perhaps establishing a small clinic, perhaps even a small hospital, as Jamaat, as members of the Doctors Association have done in Ivory Coast, for example. So inshallah, those are our plans for down the track, and we hope that we're able to achieve them.
Excellent. Now, Dr. Saab, just touching base on what Imam Saab said about the hospitals that you've established in the Ivory Coast. Now, what are you hoping to, use what the achievements that you've made there as part of the Muslim Medical Association to carry them over to the Solomon Islands?
Actually, it's a joint effort by the UK and Australian doctors to build a hospital in Ivory Coast, which was instructed by Hazur Anwar. So doctors from Australia, they contributed almost $250,000 for the hospital, and the foundation stone is laying down the stone in January, February next year, and hopefully we complete the hospital in 2 years' time.
Excellent.
And
using that information, what are your plans to build the hospital that you need in the Solomon Islands? There.
Yeah, I think that's what I think we try to build us on the same same hospital like that in Solomon Island as well. Maybe not that big,
Yep.
but to at least 4-5 beds hospital or dispensary, which purpose outpatient and inpatient. So you have a patient who need to come in for a day or two, we can provide them some inpatient care as well. But that's need a lot of efforts. It's very initial stages.
Yep.
But we definitely going to work on that, and that's a plan in the future as well.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, in hopefully in next 2 years.
Yep.
And all the doctors, my team, actually they promised me that if we try to build a hospital in Solomon Island, doctors will build a hospital. We don't want any other grant from any other,
Yep.
From our Jamaat auxiliaries. We build a hospital on our own.
No,
All the
well, that'd be
doctors.
an excellent achievement.
Yes.
Now, to have the need for another hospital there, you mentioned in the island that there's only one hospital in Mamsab. What are some of the conditions at this hospital that you found?
It's a third world country, so those conditions are nothing like we have witnessed in this part of the world. There are so many things that we just take for granted. Just basic cleanliness.
Yeah.
That's something that's not there. So, sky's the limit. How much we can, sky's the limit in regards to how much we can give back to the members, not only local members, but as well as the Jamaat over there.
Yeah.
And if I may just add, the doctors, they have responded to this. The doctors all across Australia, they have come together. Within their own circles, they are gathering various things which are necessary for hospitals and medical clinics over there.
Yep.
They are even, gathering some money which, inshallah, will help Honiara Hospital in regards to enhancing their services.
Now, Mamsab, you mentioned that there was hundreds of islands that make up part of the Solomon Islands, and you being the main one. Now, is there any plans to get the Jamaat from the wider islands and bring them to a central location, or try and attract them from further out?
Absolutely, actually, no, there are no such plans. What we are trying to do is reach out to those remote communities where those members are.
Yeah.
For example, last time when I went there, I traveled on a boat for 2 days and 2 nights to one of the furthest parts of Solomon Island.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that trip was to find and locate members which on our records, on our paper records, it showed that there were Ahmadi Muslims over there at some point in time. And that was the purpose of that trip. So such is the remoteness of these islands. I think a lot of people, they don't realize, there are no basic facilities such as electricity, there's no water, there's no sewage. So outside of, the main Honiara, which is a small city, as soon as you step outside of that city, there's no electricity, there's no phone signals, there's no running water, there's no sewage. So all these difficulties are there, but such is the work of this Jamaat, that they answer the call of the Imam and they go to such places without second thought.
And I'd imagine the conditions there would be even worse than they are in Honiara, medically speaking.
Absolutely. So you can imagine someone who lives in perhaps one of the most remotest parts of the world, where access is only by boat, and traveling, 2 days, 2 nights. So for them to have these sort of medical facilities, it's really difficult.
And Dr. Saab, with your experience there as well, the diet that the people are on, do you think that contributes to some of these medical issues that they're having there?
Yes, definitely. I think it's probably, if you don't know, they don't have like meat.
Yep.
It's very hard to find. Eggs, milk, dairy products, they're not available. So people don't have access to these sort of basic needs,
Yep.
So definitely they have deficiencies of vitamins, and other important things, So like I have seen few young females who are very anemic, and when you ask them, when they have a very low hemoglobin and things like that, and when you ask them why, and they never have a meat in their life because they can't afford it. And meat is not frequently available. So only few shops in Honiara capital where you can find the meat with the trust that when you eat, you don't get typhoid or things like that, Although WHO, they are trying to improve the situation, but still it's too far from normal, So definitely they don't have a proper diet as well. So like the diet consists of rice with some beans, and very lucky they have a fish. So fish is very common there, but they only have one fish called tuna. But it's fresh, you can get fresh fish as well. but fish, but they don't have anything else, apart from that.
And if I just may
Yeah.
add,
Yeah.
it so happened once, just coming back to what Dr. Saab said in regards to meat being available, we had this Jamaat program, and I gave some money to one of the locals to go and get some meat, and they came back with some minced meat, and they told me it was beef. However, I've seen beef, and that meat did not look like beef mince. And I inquired, are you sure this is beef? And even they weren't sure if this is beef. So, such is the condition of those
Unfortunately,
islands. Yeah.
the diet is another contributing factor to
Mm.
some of the medical issues that they're having there. Now, Imam Sab, we've talked about the country and the medical conditions. How is the Solomon Islands as a place to visit, a place to go?
It's a very unique landscape. It's a composition of 1,000+ islands. Some of them actually go underwater in some parts of the year.
Wow.
Some islands are there, in the summer. Give it 6 months, maybe they'll be under the water. So it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful land. The beautiful islands, beaches, forests, mountains, and I've had the pleasure of traveling from one side to the other.
And I'd imagine it'd be quite vast, quite a large continent or country to cross.
It is. It is. However, since the means of transport is so poor, they're really slow. So maybe it's not that big, but it takes a lot of time to cross these islands.
Wow. And Dr. Sab, this was your first visit there, I'm assuming. So how were the people when you went there?
I must say people are very friendly. Wherever I go, I'm in the hospital, my local community, and my local Jamaat, people are very friendly and very receptive. When I go to hospital as well, they're very respectful to you. They think that you're going to bring some help for them, and they're very friendly. Like, when I was seeing some patients in our mission house as well, like people who I have seen even a small help, like giving simple Panadol to them, they're so respectful to you. Amazing. They're so respectful, so good, and they ask you again and again, do you need any help? Do you need any help? That's fine, you are new here, do you know how to go from here, how you buy this, how you buy this? We can help you to buy and help buying these things as well. So very helpful, very friendly, amazing, amazing.
Yeah, wow.
And they're very receptive,
Yeah.
If you tell them something, they listen. And they listen very carefully. And they think that this is something we're telling them very good things, and they want to act upon that as well.
That's excellent.
So I
That's
think
right. You're doing a lot for the community.
Yeah, I think if we can even tell them some medical knowledge, basic medical knowledge, they don't have much schooling and things like that. They actually try to listen and listen very carefully.
Wow.
Yes, so I think amazing people, very helpful, very good, very friendly.
Now, Imam Sab, you've been there twice now. So how did you find the people?
I think they're extremely humble people. I haven't come across, people with such attributes where they're humble and at the same time they're so hospitable. They're content with what they have. They have next to nothing. They don't have, they don't even have, food. They don't even know if they will have food for the next day. And with having, living in such conditions and being hospitable, that's something which you don't see very often. One, such incident is that once I went to a village and we got there at night, and I know how poor these people are. I know that they live on a daily basis. And it so happened at night after Isha Salat, I was sitting there with a few other people, and a lady came with, a small bowl of rice and very, small, very little meat on top. To this day, I'm not too sure what kind of meat it was. But, she came and she said, this is all I have at my house, but you're our guest. You've come from really far away, and this is something that I want you to eat. So you can imagine, myself sitting there. I'm saying no because there's a lot of other people in front of me who haven't eaten. However, they wouldn't take no for an answer. They would say that, you're our guest. This is something, that you have to eat because you've come from so far away. So such is their condition. Such is their condition that even though, they don't have anything, they're content with what they have. They're humble, and at the same time, they're extremely hospitable.
Yeah, very kind and caring people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. Now, I understand that as a Jamaat, we're also helping some of the kids there.
Absolutely. So one of the things what Jamaat Australia does every year is that we support young students, kids who go to primary school and high school. We provide them with their yearly fees. So every year, Jamaat MTA Australia, we take our funds and over there we take care of their education.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Imam Sab, for coming on today's program.
Jazakallah.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dr. Sab. Jazakallah. Now, as our guests have been kind enough to enlighten us, the Solomon Islands is full of people who are kind, caring and compassionate. And our Jamaat is undertaking very extraordinary measures to help the conditions from a medical perspective for the people that live in the Solomon Islands as well. And inshallah, they'll continue to make progress in the years to come. Thank you very much for watching. This is another episode of InfoMate from MTA International Australia Studios. Jazakumullah and Khud Hafiz.